Okay, so elsewhere in this Instructable, you're going to see a demonstration where I actually do this on wood with the tools and everything else, and then the risers and a vise. But basically, here's the two situations. You're going to have a diagonal riser, and that is going to get a tenon, threaded tenon mounted on one end. Now, there is another option where I was going to, and I'm not going to do this now, but I'll just show you. This is basically what would happen when the tenon gets mounted on just a 90-degree cut. So there's two different, there's one template. There's two different, this is the same template just shown in different perspectives, right, on the different kind of wood. But basically what's going to happen here is, if you can notice, there's this red, that's really just a piece of 1/4-inch plywood. It goes into the slot on the template, and then that'll tuck it right up next to and hold it. It actually holds quite well on the riser itself. Now then there's also a couple of holes here. There's one here, and then there's another one here, and then there's another hole here. So basically you can see those without the, right here, you can see those without the wood underneath it. But when the template, because the diagonal cut creates an end grain that is longer than 3-inch, even though this is a 3-inch board, when we're cutting that end grain like that, right, we're going to have, let me just get perspective here again. So the length of this from here to here comes out to more like 3.5-inch, and so there needs to be two different pegs. One is used when right here, when it's going to be up against that pointed edge of the diagonally cut, and then the other peg you can see is being used over here, and that's when it's going to be up against the true 3-inch. So when you're using a true 3-inch, you can put a peg in here and a peg in here, and I like using 1/4-inch socket bolts. You can use dowels if you want, but then what's going to happen is, once that is placed over the top of the riser like it's shown here, it'll actually hold really well. Now you can't use this hole because, again, because of that angle, there's actually wood in the way. So when you're doing it on the diagonal risers, it's going to be the piece of plywood on one side, piece of plywood on the other side, that's 1/4-inch, and then you're going to have a peg here, and when you push down on that, that's going to hold it in place, and that'll allow you then to make the dimples. I don't know if it'll show up. Yep. Okay, so it'll allow you to make the dimples, and there's going to be 3 dimples total. 2 of the dimples are going to be for the bolts that are going to go in there, these GRKs, and then the other dimple is going to be for this center hole, and that's going to be needed when the bolt goes in there. There needs to be some space for that. So that's, again, how, just a real quick look at those, how they're going to be used. And then if we go over here to the actual instructions, I'll try to focus in on that a little bit. And so what we've got is installing the threaded tenons on the end grain using a template. It would be place the riser in a vise, and then taking template number 1, place the 1/4-inch guide next to it, which would be these 2 guides. And then the third step would be to place the 1/4-inch socket bolt in, whatever one. So if it's either this one for a 90-degree or this one for a beveled, right? And then slide that template over the end grain of the workpiece. And then using a 1/4-inch outside diameter hinge bit, which is actually a 7/64 hinge bit, has an outside diameter of just a hair under a 1/4-inch, and that way it allows it to work in the template just right. Then you'd remove the jig, then use an 1/8-inch drill bit to pre-drill all the outer holes. And what I've been doing is I've been using a Craig bit, because it's got that double end on it. It's got like an 1/8-inch tip, and then it goes up to 3/8. So I use that. I go into the hole, each of the holes, and then I go back to the center hole, and I go use the 3/8 portion of that bit, and go down about 1 inch. And then the next step would be to place the 3-hole tenon. It doesn't make any difference whether it's this multi-circled one or whether it's the DIY rectangular shaped tenon. It's the same thing. And then you'd place that 3-hole tenon over the top, and then one of those holes you'd insert a GRK, and that GRK is going to go in here. And the thing you got to be careful of on the diagonal is, let me just get to that, is the diagonal, you're going to have that wood, if the screw is too long, or if the GRK is too long, if that GRK is too long right here because of that angle, then it's going to come through, sticking through here. So what I've been doing, some of the stuff you're going to see, it says it's a 2.5 inch GRK, but you can actually get by with 1.5 inch, and a lot of that has to depend on species. So as long as you're using oak here, then a 1.5 inch is going to be fine. Then you don't have to even get close to right here. But if you're using pine, then you could use a 2.5 inch here, use a 1.5 inch here, or something like that. So then if we just go back to those instructions, back up in here, and then what I'm going to say is that you put the 2.5 inch in, or the 1.5 inch, using the number 9 would be a really good GRK. You put it in, but don't send it all the way home. So when you put one of them in, send it down, but don't send it all the way home. And by all the way home, I mean, you know, where she really ratchets down like on an impact. Just send it so that the portion of that screw underneath there, that beveled portion, actually goes in the hole of the threaded tenon. And what that'll do is it'll hold it in place from twisting on you while you're waiting to put the second one in. Then insert your second one in, and then after everything is all set to go, then you're going to send them both home. So that's how you would install the threaded tenon using the template.